Here is the Tumbler school shooter, the Canadian school shooter in British Columbia, being a psychopath. All right, enough of that. So according to reports now, Jesse Strang is transgender, and this follows a trend. I mean, we have this shooting, we have the Nashville shooting, um, the shootings in Colorado, um, the Minnesota Christian school shooting. These people are deranged, and by statistics, transgender and non-binary individuals, as we can see here, have a tendency to commit more mass shootings and are oftentimes more mentally unwell than your average person. Well, I mean, if we consider the fact that a man can't be a woman and a woman can't be a man, we take into consideration their delusion and not necessarily. Um, some people are groomed into believing that they are transgender, as we've seen with the history with detransitioners. And actually, let's ask Rock over here about the history of detransitioners. Oh, Rock, it took a long time. Well, notable people who have detransitioned. Willie Cole, a well-known advocate who began transitioning as a young teen. Double mastectomy at 15, later detransitioned and spoke publicly in legislation about her regrets and complications. So, I mean, there's various people who are regretful of their decisions, and not necessarily um, did they want to be transgender or they thought it was a good idea, but maybe these individuals were just depressed, and then they go online and talk about how depressed they are, and then some person who wants to groom them or who wants to push the trans ideology, identitarian politics, they will pick that person as a target and say maybe you're transgender, or maybe you would be better off as a boy or a girl, and then they go through the hormone therapy and surgeries, but then they realize that's not what they want, and that's one of the reasons why, um, transitioning should be absolutely illegal until 18. Once you're 18, I don't agree with transitioning at all, but I guess if it's legal and you can do what you want with your body, I would recommend not doing it because you'd be ugly for the rest of your life, and it's hard to have a normal functioning life and a relationship and even a job as a transgender. Because I know if I was a hiring manager, I wouldn't hire somebody who was transgender. I just wouldn't do it. And that's not being a hater. That's just wanting a proper, respected environment for not only for the company, but you want the company to have a good outlook and a good reputation. And there's other things that I want to address here as well. To go back to my ex, you can see um, about the one person who decided to call the shooter a gun person. As woke as he is, let's play it.
That includes the deceased gun person.
Okay. And then separately, do you know the gun person's relationship to the...
So this guy's gonna be so woke and um, decide to call this person a gun person without really mentioning the person's name because they don't want to be offensive. But let's just throw it out there. There's these all these different people now who have committed mass shootings, and they happen to be transgender or non-binary. And I think that these people do have a diagnosable medical disorder because, or mental disorder because it is diagnosed in the as a DSM-5 mental disorder, and therefore that's why they complain about they can't serve in the military, but they neglect to mention that yeah, you can't serve in the military because gender dysphoria is a DSM-5 mental disorder. And I mean, if we want to have mentally ill people in the military, go ahead. But then, if we're ever in a war, the mentally ill people are not going to act rationally in a defensive situation. They're going to act emotionally, and that's a problem. And I really think we should just make transgender surgery so expensive that nobody can afford to do it. And if somebody gives uh, the hormone treatments or surgeries without going through the legal channels, then make that a crime and prosecute them because while it may not be politically advantageous for us to just round up all the transgender people and then throw them in insane asylums. We need to open back up the insane asylums because these people are crazy. You cannot be a man if you're a woman, and you cannot be a woman if you're a man. Um, if we dig up the bodies years later, we will see different bone structure. We would tell by the angle of the hips, the Q angle, that this person was indeed a male or a female. We could also distinguish by the jawline if you are a male or a female. So, um, regardless, you have permanent changes, especially um, after puberty, that cannot be reversed through any sort of testosterone or estrogen treatment. if you are a woman and you take testosterone, it's going to deepen your voice. It's going to give you masculinizing futures for the rest of your life. That's not something that uh, I believe that they want or that they should have. So that's all I got to say on this topic. Like, share, comment, and subscribe, and look for more future videos.